Shalom, everybody. This is an Acts chapter study. Oh, no, I think I was on the wrong one. Welcome to the Acts chapter study. We're on Acts chapter 27. In the Acts chapter 27, there is, there is 44 verses. So we're going to read in groups of 11. 44 verses in Acts chapter 27. We're going to read in groups of 11. Can everybody hear me good? Welcome, JP. Welcome, Mike. Am I coming in clear?
Shalom, shalom. Yeah, I can hear you. Yes, all good.
Good. I may keep using this. All right. So we're on Acts chapter 27. I'm going to read the first 11 verses. All right, ready? It says, "And when it was determined that we should sail into Italy, they delivered Paul and certain other prisoners unto one named Julius, a centurion of Augustus' band. And entering into a ship of Adramyttium, we launched, meaning to sail by the coast of Asia. One Aristarchus, a Macedonian of Thessalonica, being with us. The next day we touched at Sidon, and Julius courteously entreated Paul and gave him freedom to go unto his friends to refresh himself. And when he had launched from there, we sailed under Cyprus, because the winds were contrary. When we had sailed over the sea of Cilicia and Pamphylia, we came to Myra, a city of Lycia. And there the centurion found a ship of Alexandria sailing into Italy, and he put us in it. And when we had sailed slowly many days and scarce were come over against the Nidus, the wind did not allow us. And we sailed under Crete against Salome. And hardly passing it, came unto the place which is called the Fair Havens. Nearby was a city, was the city of Lasea. All right. I just see just pretty much his location of where he's going. Interesting thing is verse, where is it? Verse 3. It says, "And the next day we touched at Sidon, and Julius courteously entreated Paul and gave him freedom to go to his friends to refresh himself." Again, it reminds me of the person that was in charge of the prisoners. Remember, Paul is a prisoner. So he's a prisoner, and the freedom that he has is when they get to this location, he's able to go back and fellowship with his brethren, fellowship with his brothers and sisters, fellow believers, with no problem, even though he's a prisoner. He's received this favor many times while he was a so-called prisoner. So it's just interesting how much favor he gets, even in the times of, even while he's imprisoned, or even while he's under the authority or under the submission of the authorities. Just reminds me of so many instances. David, when he was in captivity to Babylon, Daniel, when he was captivity to Babylon, and he found favor in their eyes, and the eyes all the way up to the eyes of the king. Who else? There's many different people who were. Joseph. We're doing the Joseph studies now on Shabbat. Joseph, where he was sent to prison, found favor in the prison. The chief prison guard's eyes, started running the prison, then, was running the Potiphar's house, running the prison, ended up running the whole Egypt, the whole empire. So, it's interesting how when you're in captivity, if you are serving Yah, you're not really in captivity. If you're in captivity, if you're serving Yah, you're not really in captivity. You're actually free to do what Yah wants you to do. And just interesting how he's able to do that while he's in transport to another location, to another prison. He's free to go visit his friends when he's in transport. But anybody else got anything they want to pull out of these verses? It's pretty self-explanatory. Okay. Anybody want to read the next 11? Oh, I didn't even read 11 verses. I stopped at verse 8. Let me finish the verse 9 and 9, 10 to 11. 9 to 11. So in verse 8, it says that he came near to a city, Lasea. Verse 9 says, now when much time was spent, and when sailing was now dangerous because the fast was now already past, Paul admonished and said to them, sirs, I perceive that this voyage will be with hurt and much damage, not only of the lading of the ship, but also of our lives. And verse 11 says, nevertheless, the centurion believed the master and the owner of the ship more than the things that were spoken by Paul. All right. It looks like yeah. So Paul starts to basically get an unction of what's, something is not going to happen well. It's interesting because it doesn't say that Paul heard from Yah, or Yah told him. It says in verse 10, it says, sirs, I perceive that the voyage will be with hurt and much damage. Like he's getting an unction. He's getting a perception. Like he thinks something is going to happen, not only detrimental to the boat that they're in, but also detrimental to the lives that's on the boat. Later on, we get a little bit consolation from Yah, but he's feeling like something is going to go wrong. And the person is not really listening to him. The person is more listening to the person that gave him the boat. So this is what I see right now. Anybody want to continue from verse 12 to 22? All right, go ahead, Brother Nate.
And because of the harbor was unsuitable to winter in, the greater part advised to launch from there too, if somehow they were able to reach Phoenicia, a harbor of Crete, facing southwest and northwest, to pass the winter. And a south wind blowing softly, thinking they had attained their purpose, having lifted anchor, they sailed close along Crete. And not being long after, a stormy headwind rushed down from it, called Northeaster. And when the ship was caught and unable to head against the wind, we let her go and were driven. And having run under a small island called Claude, we were hardly able to control the small boat. And having hoisted, they used helps to undergird the ship, and fearing lest they should run aground on Syrtis, they lowered the tackle and were so driven. And because they were exceedingly storm-tossed, the next day they began to throw overboard. And on the third day, we threw out the ship's tackle with our own hands. When now neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, and no small storm beat on us, all expectancy that we would be saved was taken away. And when there had been a long abstinence from food, then Shaul, standing in the midst, listened to me not, I'm sorry, I messed up. Standing in the midst of them said, truly, men, you should have listened to me, not to have sailed from Crete and sustained this damage and loss.
Verse 22.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't count. Now I urge you to take courage, for there shall be no loss of life among you, but only of the ship.
All right. You wanna point something out?
It's kind of like the other verses. There's not much there except for the last verse. It's kind of the same thing. So you mentioned when you pulled out, it doesn't say, Yah told him, but again, somehow he knew. You would think there was some type of unction or the Ruach speaking to him, being led by the Ruach, that he said it. So I don't think, from this past dealings with Paul, that he would say something without some type of, unction or something, to say that, it was confirmed. But other than that, no, I don't see much else here.
You know what's interesting? The time that it's taken for him to travel is pretty long. There was a verse that I was reading to the verse that you read, I believe is verse. You all right over there, Nate?
Yeah. Knocked my computer over. So I was
like, uh-oh, it's happening again. All right. I was looking at there was a verse in verse 9. Did you catch what it's telling us about what's going on? It says, now when much time was spent, when sailing was now dangerous, because the fast was now already past. What's the fast?
Atonement.
Huh? Yeah.
Atonement.
Day of Atonement. Because right after Day of Atonement, we have verse 20. No. We have verse 12, where it says, because the haven was not commodious to winter in, the most part advised to depart there also, if by any means they might attain to Phoenicia, and there to winter, meaning like stay for the winter.
Mm-hmm.
So we see the time frame of the year that he's being that he's traveling, trying to get over to Rome. Like they have to travel for long periods of time. Historically, that's how it was when you use ships to go to different countries. It did take sometimes months to get to where you was going. So it says the fast was now already past. Interesting thing is that there's only one fast. There's only one fast that Yah commands his people to, that he actually commands his people to do, as far as like a commandment, like a reoccurring commandment, which is like the Day of Atonement, the affliction of the soul. It's not necessarily a physical, it's not necessarily an instruction to not eat, but it was an instruction to afflict your being, to afflict your soul. So there's only one fast that Yah would have told them. And then it says that fast passed, and then now we're entering into a winter season that they're trying to avoid sailing during the winter. So it's interesting how they're giving us a little bit of notice, one, that they're recognizing the Day of Atonement, the affliction of the soul in verse 9. And then they're also showing us confirmation because they wanted to avoid sailing in the wintertime, which is on its way, which is coming right after that feast. Go ahead, brother.
Well, that's one of the questions I was going to ask. You kind of mentioned it because it says fast. I was wondering because I know some people, say, afflicting your soul, and there's different ways to afflict your soul. But since they specifically used fast here,
Right.
That was a question I had. And then also, since it's past and it's now winter and it's getting cold, there's some people that say, oh no, it wouldn't have been like October because it's too cold. But now I'm wondering if maybe it was, and we're people are on the right track because it's like it passed and then now it's cold. So it's like
right.
The only so maybe that would not have been in September because it probably would have been a little warmer. something that came to my brain when I saw that.
Yeah, well, you can see that it says one the word fast there is emphasizing on abstinence. It's not emphasizing on food, even though you can abstain from food as well. But it's talking about abstinence. We know there's only one thing where Yah tells us to be, to basically afflict the soul. Like to me, if we're gonna have like a moment with Yah, I believe that abstaining from food helps with the mind, but you need to also abstain from normal interaction. Like you need to abstain from a whole bunch of other stuff besides food. Like, you're not watching TV while you're trying to spiritually fast or trying to gain more insight in scripture. You're not playing video games, playing Call of Duty while you're fasting. Like, there's a collective thing, that amount of things that you should abstain from in order for your mind to be fully devoted to Yah or dedicated to Yah. Tony, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, something that I just saw right now in verse 13, it says that a south wind blowing softly, like it was, oh, it's nice and breezy, we're going to be fine, thinking that they had attained their purpose. And what I just see is the difference between walking by sight or walking by faith. Shaul here, he's perceiving things in his ruach, and he's telling these people, he's warning them about it. But everybody else is walking by the flesh, and they're just like, no, we're gonna be all right. I mean, I don't want to spend the winter here. I want to be back where my people are at. Or it could be any excuse. But It seems like as a collective, the majority walks by the flesh, and Shaul was walking by sight, and I just see a difference there.
No, absolutely. Those who just came in, we're on Acts chapter 27. We just read the first 22 verses. We're talking about the Day of Atonement, which is mentioned in verse 9, the time of the year. We mentioned in verse 12. Brother Tony was mentioning how they wanted to move with the Ruach. Well, Paul wanted to move with the Ruach, but everyone else was kind of going off of verse 12, going off of the, was it verse 12? Verse 13, sorry. Going off what they were feeling, It's interesting because the season actually tells you what's going on. That's why they didn't want to travel in the winter. One, it says that the fast already passed. So this is after Day of Atonement. So the fall has already started a while ago. So they're already moving past that time of the fall. So the interesting thing, which I really like seeing, is what Tony brought up as well. The Ruach, he's being moved by the Ruach. Paul doesn't have to say the Ruach is telling me. He's not like broadcasting, Yah told me, the Ruach is telling me. He's telling them what to have confidence in. What Brother Nate read, let's look at the last 21, verse 21 and 22. Where is it? Verse 21 and 22, it says, but after long abstinence, Paul stood forth in the midst of them and said, sirs, you should have listened to me and not have loosed or set sail from Crete to have gained this harm and loss. But now I encourage you to be of good cheer, because there shall be no loss of any man's life among you, but of the ship. And then in verse 23, it says, for there stood by me this night the angel of Elohim, whose I am and whom I serve. So I guess he's saying the angel, well, he's not saying the angel told him this, but he's very confident in what the angel or what Yah is going to perform. Yeah, I think he's going to continue. I'm looking at some of the verses. I know some of you guys are looking at some of the verses. So let's read on a little bit. Let's look at verse 23 to verse 33. Does anybody? Yeah, go ahead, Nate.
Well, I guess I find it curious because I thought about just now thinking about back where Tony was reading, where was it at? Verse 14. The stormy headwind from the nor'easter. And I know when the scripture, and not any spiritual application to it, just that the latter rain. It's the time of year that it would be coming from the north, and I just wonder why it would be like you said, why they didn't listen to Paul, because it seemed like if you're a sailor and the owner of a ship, you would know that this is the stormy time of the year. It's just I'm curious as to now why they were so adamant about moving, especially when Paul reminded them, hey, this is the time of year. The latter rain, the storms from the north are coming. That was a cooler season. In the spring, the former rain comes up from the south and it's warmer air. So I just
that would be good as far as in an agricultural sense. They would know such things like this, but we're talking about Roman soldiers. Not sure if they were Roman soldiers and farmers. I don't think that they were aware of that type of stuff. But when we look at verse 11 and 12, or verse 10 and 11, it says, and Paul said to them, sirs, I perceive that this voyage will be with hurt and much damage, not only of the lading of the ship, of the lading and the ship, but also of our lives. Now look at what verse 11 says. Verse 11 says, nevertheless, the centurion believed the master and the owner of the ship more than those things which were spoken by Paul. So it doesn't tell us what they told the centurion. All we know is that these guys were saying something different than Paul, and the centurion believed them over Paul's perception. So even though Paul was giving them this information, the centurion listened more to what the owner of the boat was telling them rather than Paul. So
yeah.
you can see.
I mean, that's what I mean. Like the owner of the boat, if you or as captain of the boat, it's like you would know when the stormy. I don't know.
It's a matter. Also a matter of them caring. Like perhaps, it's the owner of the boat. So, why are they taking the boat? Why are the centurion taking the boat? And how is he taking the boat? Is he paying for the boat? I'm pretty sure. We're not talking about followers of Yah here. So, a person that wants to make some money could care less what type of, if you're going to rent his boat out and he's going to make some money, some government money from the Roman centurion, he's probably not going to say, hey, don't rent my boat because it's going to be bad. He's probably like, I don't care. Give me the money. Go ahead. But Paul was trying to deviate that wrong decision. He was trying to, all right, please, don't do this. The boat is going to mess up and people's lives are going to be in danger, Go ahead, JP.
Yeah, I was just thinking, for one, I was like, okay, maybe Paul could have been had some understanding, you know what I'm saying, with ships and boats, and that sort of thing, you know what I mean? And then I started thinking, well, maybe there was some discernment involved, you know what I mean? Maybe there was some discernment involved and he was discerning the skies, you know what I'm saying? Discerning the wind. And he's like, hey, because I remember the scripture in one of the Gospels where Yahusha says, you guys can discern the sky and tell the time, but you just don't know it. Speaking about the end times and things like that. But it was just interesting because as we read 20, it says in 19, and the third day was we cast out with our hands the tackling of the ship. And then it says in verse 20, and when neither sun nor stars in many days appeared, and no small tempest lay on us, all hope that we should be saved was then taken away. It says, so it's like, man, like that is serious right there. You know what I'm saying? Like no hope if to be saved, man. I'll be afraid at that point. You know what I mean?
Right. But you
You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah, you pointed out some good stuff. Because you see, this is why Yah now had to come send the angel to Paul.
right.
It says all hope that this is Luke writing this. So Luke is afraid out of his mind. And he's just like, all hope that we should be saved was taken away. Like, no, we don't.
Like they got rid of everything. They lightened the ship. They just started getting rid of stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I could imagine, like, they didn't see this. They said they didn't see the sun or the stars for many days. I can't imagine how scary that looks in the middle of the ocean. I can't imagine.
And then they got, I mean, I was just thinking like, wow, like, you know, for Paul, you know, he's discerning this. And then he says in 21, but after long abstinence, Paul stood forth in the midst of them and said, sirs, you should have hearkened unto me and not have loosed from Crete and to have gained this harm and loss. And so then, you know, we're going to get to the next verses, but you know, it was just an interesting like visual in my mind. I'm like, man, like there had to be a lot of fear. I mean, I know I've been on a boat where I'm like, land is far, like civilization is a distance away. I ain't swimming back. You know, I can't miss that. You know, like when you see these people that have been on the ocean for 40 days, 30 days, and they survive, I'm like, that's a miracle. Yeah, that's a real miracle. So, but we're seeing an account that we definitely we're going to see Yahuah, you know, working.
Absolutely.
So, just want to bring that. I just thought that was interesting.
I like what you're bringing out, because now it just proves to us that when he first said it, when he first told them, "Hey, don't do it," and I like that you brought up Messiah says you could look in the sky. He was talking to Pharisees. Now you know Paul is a Pharisee. He said you could look in the sky, you could tell when there's going to be bad weather. But you can't look at the signs of the times and tell where your visitation is not. So here, Paul is recognizing the signs. I can imagine Paul explaining why he believes this. You know, and they go on, and Paul is like, they're all like quiet. It says here, verse 21, a long abstinence. Like everybody is just like, we're done. And while this long abstinence is happening, Yah is talking to Paul and confirming to Paul of what's going to happen, which we're going to see next. So I like the fact that Yah can give like this unction, you know, of knowledge, the knowledge that you have. He can give you this unction based off of the knowledge that you have to warn people. It's not always like, some trance. Oh, I'm in a trance, and now let me tell you the right thing. No, he has knowledge of what's going on, and he's trying to impart that knowledge, and they're not listening, you know. And because they're not listening, they all should have died, but Yah is going to intervene now. And now he's going to be able to give not only hope to everybody, but now he's going to tell everybody from where hope actually comes, you know. So
no, I like that you said that. You know, one of those things about the Ruach, when the Ruach's moving, you know, I think some people are in that mindset that it's like you hear, you know, when sometimes I guess people, maybe, I don't know, you know, I don't want to stop nobody from their, you know, but sometimes people have that audible, like they're like, oh, you know, I'm going to hear him. But I feel like it's more of a, you like almost like you have, you know, like this, like you can hear with your heart, you know what I'm saying? You hear with your heart. And so that's a whole different level, you know what I mean, of listening to Yahuah. It's not just like, oh, I'm gonna, you know, in my ears, no, but like I hear him, like I know he's, and so that's what and it's that kind of
like he's moving, because he's stirring up your ruach, your mind. He's like, you know, sometimes we're trying to look for, like, we're sitting down trying to look for like clear things when he's equipping you with different ways of recognizing his communication.
Right. Right.
You're troubled. You're feeling troubled. You're feeling this way. Messiah, there was moments where he was in sorrow. Why was he in sorrow? When we look at all of these emotions, we think that Yah is kind of absent during those times, but a lot of these times, Yah's giving us messages while we're in these emotional, mental situations. Whether it be anguish, whether it be fear, whether it be joy. Even when it's joyful, it's kind of like Yah's not. He has not exited the situation just because you're joyful, just because you're sad, just because you're afraid. And I think that a lot of times we need to pay attention more to how he's trying to communicate to us, especially when it comes to knowledge. A lot of times that's what causes us to feel trouble, because we know something is wrong. We can see something could be wrong, but we're not sure if that's gonna, so a lot of times we need to kind of pay attention to ourselves and learn that voice. Mecca, go ahead, brother. Mecca. Oh yeah, there you go.
Can you hear me? Okay. All right. Now, just to what JP was talking about the Ruach. Yahusha says, I was trying to look for it. Yahusha says that, no one knows when the Ruach comes, it's the wind. You don't know when or where, ends. But, and that's how the Ruach is. You don't know where it started or where it's going to finish up. It just comes when it comes, right? And so, just to like JP's point, like, you are looking for something, even looking at chapter 2, it's just
You're breaking up.
They were all
You're breaking up bad. Yeah, I can't hear it. Does anybody else hear? Because I can't hear anything.
That sounds
Nah,
pretty.
yeah, he was breaking up.
Yeah, you can't hear
Start
anything.
over, Mecca.
What about now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I hear you now.
Okay, so we just said, like, no one knows where the Ruach, the Ruach's like the wind, and no one knows where it starts from or when it ends.
It's breaking up badly.
Look,
you want to call in?
Man.
Yeah. You want to call
in?
Yeah. It was much clearer when you called in. But the verse you're looking for is in John chapter 3, where he's talking to, I believe he's talking to Nicodemus about those who are born of the Ruach. See if we could call in. So he was mentioning John chapter 3 when it comes to the Ruach. John chapter 3, verse 7 and 8. Or verse 6, 7, and 8. It says, that which is born of the flesh is flesh, that which is born of the Ruach is Ruach. Marvel not that I said this to you, you must be born again. And it says, the wind blows where it wants, and you hear the sound of it, but you cannot tell where it came from or where it goes. So is every person that is born of the Ruach. So, I mean, it's talking about a person that is born with the Ruach. The people are not going to understand you. They're not going to understand where you're coming from. They're not going to understand how you move and things like that. Let me see. Ameka, You calling in? Check out John, if you can hear me in Mecca, check out John chapter 3, verse 6 to 8. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Says he's connecting his audio right now. So.
Okay. All right. All right. I'm gonna come back to him. Does anybody want to read verse 23 to 33?
I'll read.
All right, brother Tony, go ahead.
Yo, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Hold on, Tony. Go ahead.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, so what I was saying earlier is that Yahusha talks about the Ruach being like the wind, and that no man knows, where it starts or where it ends, it just comes when it comes, and so what I was thinking about, about what JP was saying is, in Acts chapter 2, it says, and when the days of Shavuot was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place. And suddenly there came a sound from heaven as of a rushing mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting. And there appeared unto them cloven tongues like as of fire, and it sat upon each one of them. And they were filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, and began to speak with other tongues as the Ruach gave them utterance. So, just to JP's point, it's like you don't see the Ruach. It's gonna be there's gonna be that feeling, and then just a takeover, in the spiritual. There's gonna be a takeover of the Ruach HaKodesh, being vessels for it, and so yeah, it's like there's not gonna be much now for them. They didn't know what to expect. It just came, and so that's exactly kind of ties up to like how Yahusha said, no man knows where it begins or where it ends, but when it comes, and so it's not like the Ruach came and it was on them, and then after a while of them speaking in tongues, in these other languages, so that people of those languages could hear. Then after the message that it got across, after what Yahuwah wanted to say, then the Ruach left again, and so, because it's not like they just kept those tongues and that they knew new languages, but it was the Ruach that was speaking through them. So, I thought that was pretty interesting to what JP said, connecting it with the wind.
Yeah, no. That I was trying to let you know that the verse he was looking for is in John chapter 3, verse 6 to 8. Yeah, but in those verses, he was saying that the people who are born of the Ruach are like the wind. He didn't say that the Ruach was like the wind. He said the people that were born of the Ruach are like the wind.
You said John 3?
Yeah, John chapter 3, verse 6 to 8. Yeah, I understand what you mean.
Okay.
Probably the expectation of what the Ruach is like nobody knows how it's going to move you. There is an expectation, though. There is an expectation of knowing. Like Hamashiach said to them to wait in Jerusalem.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
For the Ruach to come. So they knew it was coming, and then it came on a feast day. They knew it was coming. They didn't know that's what it was going to do. But just like
absolutely.
now, like we know the Ruach is moving. We just don't know where he's going to move us to go. So we are the evidence of how the Ruach is moving. When people see you, they don't understand. They're like, where it says in 2 Corinthians, it says spiritual things are spiritually discerned. spiritually, things are spiritually understood. So only another spiritual person can really understand. Only another person with the Ruach can understand, But I get what you're
Yeah.
saying. Everybody else, they were unexpectedly, informed by the Ruach of how things were going to go. And Yah does that to me all the time, where we're like seeing certain doors open, seeing certain plans, and then right when it's time to move, Yah's like, nah, I want you to go over here, and I'm gonna open all the doors for you over here. So that he does that with me a lot, where it's unexpected, but I know he's gonna move, but it's just how he tells me to move. It's sometimes it's crazy, So I relate to what you're saying, brother. All right, we wanna
Great. Yeah.
praise Yah. Praise Yah, we know he's gonna move, and we don't have to worry. We just gotta move with him. Let's look at verse. Tony, you was gonna read verse 23 to 33, right? Yeah.
23:33.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. For there stood by me this night the angel of Elohim, whose I am and whom I serve, saying, Fear not, Shaul, thou must be brought before Caesar. And lo, Elohim hath given thee all them that sail with thee. Wherefore, sirs, be of good cheer, for I believe Elohim, that it shall be even as it was told me. Howbeit we must be cast upon a certain island. But when the 14th night was come, as we were driven up and down in Adria, about midnight, the shipmen deemed that they drew near to some country. And it sounded and found it 20 fathoms. And when they had gone a little further, they sounded again, and found it 15 fathoms. Then, fearing lest we should have fallen upon rocks, they cast 4 anchors out of the stern, and wished for the day. And as the shipmen were about to flee out of the ship, when they had let down the boat into the sea, under color as though they would have cast anchors out of the foreship, Shaul said to the centurion and to the soldiers, Except these abide in the ship, ye cannot be saved. Then the soldiers cut off the ropes of the boat and let her fall off. And while the day was coming on, Paul besought them all to take meat, saying, This day is the 14th day that ye have tarried and continued fasting, having taken nothing. I want to point out in verse 23, where it says that there stood by me this night the angel of Elohim. That word is agelos, like messenger. And so, multiple times we've read in Acts where Yahusha is the one who presented himself to him and continued telling him, hey, you're going to go to Rome. And I just feel right now, it doesn't say it right there, but I believe that this is talking about Yahusha as well.
Say it, brother. Say it.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
Well,
Is the one whom I serve, he says.
the angel of Elohim, the messenger of Elohim, is
Right.
Yahusha. He says it throughout Moshe's day. That angel that I will send with you to bring you to the place that's Yahusha. He's the one that brings us. The interesting thing is that in verse 23, he says that he belongs to the angel of Elohim, and he serves the angel of Elohim. It's just like when the angel came to Joshua, and he was like,
Oh,
"Who
yeah.
you with?" And he was just like, "I'm not with any of you. I'm the captain of the armies."
For real.
I mean, who I'm with? Who are you?
Take off your sandals, by the way.
So exactly, you saw Joshua. He got down quick because he knew. He was like, "Okay." So Yahushua is very, very involved with all of them. He was talking to them throughout, So when you look in the Old Testament, when you look in the Torah, you could see that the angel of Yahuwah, a lot of times, I'm not saying every single time, but a lot of times when Yah is telling us to look at this messenger, Exodus 23, where he says, behold, I send you a messenger, a malakim, which is the equivalent to angelos. I send you
Right.
this Malachim that's going to go before you to take you to the place that I prepared. John 14, where he says, I go to a place to prepare a place for, he said, I go, and when I come back, I'm going to take you to that place.
Right.
You don't have anyone else leading us to that place. Just like Joshua brought them into the land, we have Yahushua bringing us into that place. So the angel of Elohim in Exodus 23 is Yahushua, is the one that's leading them and guiding them personally. Of course, there's Malachim, heavenly Malachim that's involved.
Right.
We know that. But as far as being involved, we see Yahushua talking to them throughout the whole book of Acts.
Yeah. It's just it's hard to believe it could be a regular angel, because I don't see anywhere in scripture where it says I served the angel Gabriel,
Right.
or I served,
Absolutely.
it doesn't make any sense if it would be anybody else.
It can't, because when you look at Gabriel coming to John in the book of Revelation, John bows down to Gabriel.
Oh, right.
And Gabriel was like, well, to the angel that was there. And this wasn't Yahushua, because Yahushua was in Revelation too. But when the angel was there, he said, nah, don't bow down to me. I'm your fellow brethren.
Yeah.
But when this captain of the host comes, he's telling you take off your shoes. He's not telling you, oh no, I'm just your fellow brother. He's like, take off your shoes. Like, I'm here on behalf of my father. Like, everything that's my father is in me. So you can't see him. I'm here right now, the captain. Even in Exodus 3, I believe, the burning bush, it says that the angel of Elohim was in the burning bush talking to Moshe. It wasn't, the burning bush wasn't just talking to Moshe. It said that the angel of Elohim was in the bush. So that's an excellent connection. And this verse 23, definitely shows that Paul's saying, I belong to him and I serve him. So praise Yah, that's a clear revelation. Yahushua is involved, heavily involved. Anybody else want to pull anything out before we move forward? It's interesting. Oh, go ahead, brother JP.
Well, just looking back at 22, I was just looking at how, because I felt like to say 22 in the last chapters, the last verses, it didn't make sense as much until you read, connecting it with 23. He says, now I exhort you to be of good cheer, for there shall be no loss of any man's life among you but the ship. So that's pretty interesting that, the angel or the messenger tells him that. It says there's no loss going to be loss of man's life it ain't going to happen, right?
Right.
And then as we read on,
Right.
I believe in verse 30, it says, and as the shipmen were about to flee out of the ship, when they had let down the boat into the sea under color, as though they would have cast anchors out of the foreship, Paul said to the centurion and to the soldiers, except these abide in the ship, you cannot be saved. So that was kind of cool, like Paul's like telling them, like, hey, the command or the instructions was those that are in the ship will be saved. So if you get out the ship, you ain't gonna be saved. So that was pretty cool right there, that you see that truth, and Paul was, staying strong to that, So then it says in 32, then the soldiers cut off the ropes of the boat and let her fall off. They're like, oh,
they're listening now.
Now they're listening. You know what I'm saying? Now they're listening, man. I'm like, oh, okay. All right.
But praise Yah that the mercy that he shows, and also the recognition of his people that he's given to the men. Like he's talking to the men through his servant, and hopefully by his servant's instructions, they recognize who Yah is and how merciful he is. Because Paul did tell them, he said, you're going to lose not only the ship, but you're going to lose lives. This is what Paul said. But now we see that Yah is telling him that they're not going to lose any life, but they may lose the ship. You see what I'm saying? Give me 1 second.
Yeah, no, that was an interesting section right there at the end, though, you know. And then 33 says, and while the day was coming on, Paul besought them all to take meat, saying, this day is the 14th day that you have tarried and continued fasting and have taken nothing. So, I mean, is that what had happened here? Is that they fasted? Did they fast 14 days? That's interesting right there. I don't know if anybody has that in their mind or not also. Because it sounds like they fasted 14 days from verse 33.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
It says, because it said that they didn't have any food. Where it says that earlier they threw everything off of the ship, so they didn't have anything. I'm not sure where that was.
Oh, that was back like in 17. Says in 17, which when they had taken up, they used helps, ungirding the ship and fearing lest they should fall into quicksand straight. But I don't, maybe it was
Yeah.
before
Oh,
that.
verse 21, where it talks about the long abstinence.
Uh-huh.
That word is G776,
Right.
which says fasting.
Mm.
So when they started throwing everything off the boat, then they didn't have anything else. They were just sitting there, and then I like what you brought out when they was like, I'm about to jump off because this boat is going crazy. It's interesting how it sounds similar to Noah. You know,
Mm.
stay on the boat, you're gonna be saved, you're gonna be rescued. You know, it's interesting how it correlates rather than jumping off because the boat is looking like it's crazy. It's
Right.
tossing to and fro, but you got to you hold on to the instruction that was given,
Yeah.
regardless of how it looks, you know. And that's the lesson that they learned earlier. You know, everything looked all good, but you know, they ignored the instruction. But now everything is looking crazy and they're trying to hold on to the instruction, you know. So, you know, praise God. That's a good object lesson. Again, brings us back to Noah, you know. Go ahead, brother Tony.
No, my fault. I accidentally read ahead, so I'll save my comment for the next section. My bad.
Okay. All right. Since we're there, let's get to it. Verse 34 to 44. I'll read it. It says, let me go up. It says, wherefore I pray to you. So after they fasting for 14 days, he says, wherefore I'm asking you guys to take some food because this is for your health, because there shall not be a hair fall from the head of any of you. You know, and when he had said this, he took bread, gave thanks to Elohim in the presence of them all. And when he had broken it, see that witness? It's just so, it's like that's just his life. It's not even like he's doing it purposely to witness. This is just how he rolls. That's why I love reading the book of Acts. It's just we're reading about how people are in Yah, not people trying to do. And it just makes me more encouraged to just be myself, you know. And I think I encourage all you brothers to do the same. Like your uniqueness is what Yah is going to allow to shine with the power of the Ruach. The way that Yah created you is how he's going to allow you to glorify him on this earth. You know, you don't have to be like anyone else. You know, praise Yah. So verse 35, he says he gives thanks in the presence of all of them. He breaks it and he begins to eat. Then they were all of good cheer, and they also took food. And we were all in the ship, 276 souls. That's crazy. I didn't even picture that in my mind, that many people. 276 people, 76 souls, beings. And when they had eaten enough, they lightened the ship and cast out the wheat into the sea. And when it was day, they knew not the land, but they discovered a certain creek with a shore, and into the which they were minded, if it were possible, to thrust in the ship. So they were trying to go in that direction of like it looks like a beach. And when they had taken up the anchors, they committed themselves unto the sea, and they loosed the rudder bands, and they hoisted up the mainsail to the wind, and made toward the shore. Falling into a place, there were two seas met. Where two seas met, they ran the ship around, and the afore part stuck fast and remained unmovable, but the back part broke off with a violent wave. The soldiers' counsel was to kill the prisoners, lest any of them should swim out and escape. But the centurion, willing to save Paul, that's crazy by itself, kept them from that purpose, and commanded that they which could swim should cast themselves first into the sea to get to land, and the rest, some on boards, some on broken pieces of the ship. And so it came to pass that they all escaped safely to land. All right. I want to point out that main part. Oh, Mecca, you want to say something? I saw you clicking over there. Go ahead, brother.
You talking about me?
Yeah. I heard
Okay.
you shuffling, so I know you wanted to say something.
Yeah, something I really liked was in let me see. Let me see, what verse was it? While the day was coming before this, then so I take food this day, 14th day. Is that okay? In verse 33, it says, and while the day was coming on, Paul besought them all to take food, saying, this day is the 14th day that you have tarried and continued fasting, having taken nothing. Wherefore I pray you to take some food, for this is for your health. For there shall not a hair fall from the head of any of you. Just seeing that, I don't know if you guys touched on, did you guys touch on them fasting at all?
Well, yeah, we mentioned it. You have something else to add to that?
No, I just thought it. No, I wasn't sure if you guys touched on that. I walked away for just a little bit, but yeah, no, just seeing that they were committed to fasting, and during this time of their fasting, an angel of Yahuah, comes to Paul during that time to send a message, and it reminds me of what's said in James. I think it's chapter 2, where he talks about, chapter 1, where he talks about a man, that lacks belief is like, a man wavering, wavering in the wind, tossed like, like this. I think it says tossed like the sea.
Verse 6.
Tossed like the waves. Yeah, exactly. Tossed like the waves. And so I was just thinking, like, man, that's how you see these people standing firm. He says, verse 6 in James chapter 1, it says, but let him ask in belief, nothing wavering. For he that wavers is like a wave of the sea driven with the wind and tossed. For let not that man think that he shall receive anything of Yahuah. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. And so just to see them come on one of, fasting, knowing the predicament they're in. I'm sure there was some counsel from Paul, like, hey, look, y'all, we in a crappy situation right now. The only way, the only thing I can recommend is that we get to fast and praying to Yahuah, our Elohim who delivers, and sure enough, just to see, everything that corresponds after the angel coming to Paul saying that, guiding him and what to tell the people and what he, what was given from the angel. I just think that's really interesting because it shows like even these people who probably some of them weren't yet full believers now seeing everything that was going on and they're like, yo, well, shoot, this is the only option we got for our safety. Like, let's just do it and we'll pray and hopefully, this Elohim that they worship will make a way. And so, it even says it, and he even says, what does he say? He tells Paul when he comes to him, he says, saying, fear not, Paul, you must be brought before Caesar, and lo, Yahuwah has given you all them that sail with you. So Yahuwah has already given Paul these people, to save, like, listen, look, he's giving you these people to redeem for him. You will already have won them over, and so to see now that, okay, they've been fasting and they're waiting for this, like, this is all part of Yahuwah's plan to redeem more people and bring deliverance to these people, because he knows, look, y'all fasted and y'all prayed. As soon as these people get delivered from the situation, they see what was done, they're going to know that it was of your Elohim and they're going to be ready to submit, and so he says, for Yahuwah has already given them to you. Right. I'm just like, wow, the way it's said here, I really like, that's amazing.
Yeah, I want to confirm that this is verse 24 Ameka's talking about. That is amazing. That is amazing. Like, to see that the witness that Paul has to demonstrate it in his life, in the way that he does things in faith, has caused the men to believe, at least Paul, to at least follow after his guidance. They trust him to the point where even further down, when you look at verse 42, where it says the soldiers' commands was to kill the prisoners so they won't swim away, and the centurion, the head of all of that, wanting to save Paul, stopped them from doing that. It just shows how important it is to be responsible. You know what I mean? I remember, this is a quick statement. I remember when I was first in the walk and I was, not first in the walk, but when I was getting serious. And I had people kind of in my responsibility. And because of my insecurity, I didn't take responsibility for those individuals. You know what I did? I sent them to the religious organization that I was going to. I sent them to someone else that I felt was more qualified than me, even though they trusted me. So, of course, if I send them somewhere, they're going to trust me. And now I'm leaving that organization, and all those people are still in that organization when Yah wanted me to take responsibility for the people that actually trust me. And so I'm looking at this verse 24 that you brought out of Mecca, and it just confirms even more how I need to stand up and take responsibility for the people that trust me, and that I can lead them to Yahuwah and guide them to Yahuwah myself, rather than telling them to go to another man or another institution to find answers. You know what I mean? I was so insecure of my ability that I kind of relied completely on on the institution rather than on Yah using me. And I see here that Yah is telling Paul, like, listen, I gave them to you. They're going to listen to what you say. You know, they're going to believe what you tell them. And the first thing Paul does is tell them what Yah said to him, and that they gave thanks to Yah, and that they ate because Yah is going to deliver them. And Yah, you know, just pointing everybody back to Elohim, you know. So praise Yah. Thank you, Amek, for pointing that out. It just confirms a lot more in my head, you know, because sometimes I do still fall back in that insecurity, you know, and just knowing that we need to all take responsibility of the people that trust us and make sure that we're leading them to Yah instead of either another institution or even to ourselves. We need to make sure that they're going to Elohim and that you're walking with them responsibly, you know. So praise Yah. Praise Yah. That was definitely a lesson for me. JP, go ahead, brother. And then Tony.
Just, I mean, it was interesting, like towards the end, the end verses. It says that in verse 41, it says they ran because, they ran the ship, it says aground, like, so it hit the sand, like it hit this beach, like super hard. Like that was a powerful hit because it says, and the fore parts stuck fast and remained unmovable, but the hinder parts was broken with the violence of the waves. So this big, catastrophe happens, and it says, and the soldiers' counsel was to kill the prisoners, lest any of them should swim out and escape. So that was like the first thought. It was like after all that was said and done, they were still counseled, like, let's kill these prisoners, because just in case some escape, right? And then you see the centurion says, but the centurion, willing to save Paul, kept them from their purpose and commanded that they could swim. That they which could swim should cast themselves first into the sea and get to the land, and the rest they got on some type of way, some pieces of board and stuff. But it was just interesting. I mean, just the scene, the scene of a ship, and then like you had mentioned, which I didn't, the whole time in the beginning, you're only thinking like a couple people. You're like thinking like 10, 15 people, but you're talking 276 people. That's a lot. That's a big ship and a lot of people. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, for Paul to be in control in a sense or of authority, it's amazing. It's amazing the way Yahuwah has placed him, and then for this situation at the end to happen, where now they're getting this favor, the prisoners are getting favor, and so I only think 276 witnesses of Yahuwah now, going to and I mean I can only imagine it or to try to understand it, because of course they're going to go back to their homelands and wherever they're going, prison or wherever it is, they're going to speak about Yahuwah, and they're going to share the blessings that maybe a lot of them didn't even know. They didn't know Yahuwah. I don't know. I don't know what lands they came from. But now to kind of going back to the point of sharing the gospel to the four corners of the earth, you know what I mean, to the world. Like, you got all these people going back to their homeland and sharing the gospel. So just it's interesting the way that, like you said, the witnessing of Paul just naturally and Yahuwah just moving naturally. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. Praise Yah for the favor that we find in the eyes of Yahuwah first, and also in the eyes of men. It's because of the favor in Yahuwah's eyes that the Ruach is felt, even by the nations, even by the pagan nations. They still feel that power. They still witness that there's something. Yah put it in man to respond to Yah, to respond to him. That's why it's a message. It's a message that Yah is given, that when you hear it, there's something that causes you to desire to respond, and you have the choice to reject it. That's how powerful the message is. When it remains Yah's message. Sometimes we tailor it when it becomes our message and it has no power because we're delivering what we want them to have. But when Yah speaks through us, it's kind of hard to resist. You can see in Acts chapter 9, they couldn't resist Paul. They couldn't resist Stephen. They couldn't resist many people that spoke on behalf of Yah, teaching the word. A lot of people, they couldn't resist it. It was like, it's either I get rid of you or I submit, So praise Yah for his favor, because his favor is what gives us that power to affect the people around us, and we don't even have to work hard to gain anybody. The witness itself is doing the work. The words that we speak on a natural basis, natural basis meaning like as we receive the Ruach, the things that we do and say has its own work, just like Yah's word never comes back to him void. The things that we say and do doesn't come back to us void, regardless of whether we see the outcome or not, it's going to have an effect on the people around us. I could speak as an example of that as well in my experience as well. Even here in Florida, like a lot of people is just coming up to me, and all I'm doing is just living my life, trying to do what I need to do. Go ahead, Brother Tony.
Yeah, I like what you said, brother, because right here we see in verse 22, what he told him actually came to pass. So in this instance, he was a prophet. He spoke something that he received. He spoke it without tailoring it at all. And he said, there shall be no loss of any man's life among you, but of the ship only. So right there, it came to pass. They're now on this island, and now people are reasoning like, whoa, none of us perished. What he said was true.
Right.
And I just wanted to put a precept for about the favor that Shaul experienced by the centurion in Proverbs 14:35. It says that the king's favor is toward a wise servant, but his wrath is against him that causes shame. So Shaul, a perfect example of being a wise servant right here, doing what he's supposed to do for 14 days. I don't know if he was trying to compel himself or trying to get listened to by the rest of them. Maybe for 14 days he just kept quiet, and then at the right time he spoke again. And for not rushing it, for being a wise servant, he received Yahuwah's favor in this instance. And just a good example, just doing what he's supposed to do, and for us as well, trying to just live our lives and let things happen as they're supposed to happen, everything in its season.
Praise Yah. That's interesting that you bring that up, because they lost hope. And when they lost hope, they started fasting, not because a lot of them didn't fast because they were hopeful, but I'm not talking about the believers like Paul, and I'm talking about everyone else. And that's why Paul was given the message to tell them to be of good cheer, to tell them what Elohim was going to do, because remember, they fasted to pagan gods as well. Pagans, the nations fasted to their false gods as well. But the interesting thing is Yahuwah is the only one answering. Yahuwah is the one answering them through the servant of Yahuwah. So everybody can see, they're not being delivered by their Elohims. They're being delivered by Paul's Elohim. And now they can see that Paul's words are coming to light. So when Paul tells them, this is Yah helping us. This is a message from Yah. The messenger of Yah came here, next to me, and then he breaks bread and gives thanks to Elohim as well, in front with them. So, very wise, man. Paul is very wise and very strategic in the way that he does things. He's not impulsive. He doesn't move by emotion. He's moving very strategically because this is how he normally thinks. He's not losing that. And I think that we need to, again, of course, learn from that method of that peace of mind where he's just flowing into his decisions rather than being impulsive. Like, Yah wants us to do this. Let's do this. Yah wants to, like you said, he could have been telling them about Yah a long time ago, but 14 days passed. Yeah, and it's like he waited. He had a message. He had knowledge already, but he waited for a certain time, and that's a good method, especially since everybody is fasting. It was probably a better time because their minds were probably clearer to receive, the truth. That's
a good
why
point.
after he told them that, he said, let's eat now.
Mhm.
Yah's with us. Let's eat now, So it's interesting. Interesting.
Mhm.
I see Mecca. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, this just just you bringing out how they were hopeless, and they were fasting, and it brings out for me. I can't remember what verse it is. It's one of my favorite verses, but it speaks about how, I think it's somewhere in Corinthians, but it speaks about how he tells when Shaul, he says that he entreated Yahuwah
Mm-hmm.
3 times because he had a thorn in his side.
Yeah.
And he says that, he told Shaul, he said, my grace is sufficient for you, because he was receiving a lot of credit, and Shaul didn't like the way the nations were kind of boasting him up, or people were boasting him up. And so, he said he sought Yahuwah, three times, and he said Yahuwah came to him and said, my grace is sufficient for thee. He said, my power is made perfect in weakness. And so every time I hear that, I just think about, when we're in our most vulnerable times, and we begin to trust and we begin to pray to Yahuwah, we have that trust in him, and we begin to seek him, and he knows how vulnerable a state we're in. He knows when we're on that. He knows when we get to that point where there's no other hope other than in him. It's like he knows when we get that, when there's, I can't look at man, there's no one I can look for to get me out of this situation other than Yahuwah. He knows that. And when we're at those vulnerable points, it's like, that's when he's like, yo, that's when my power is made perfect. That's when you really get to see my hand move, in your favor. When you can't rely on when you don't rely on nobody else but me. And I know that you're not relying on any person or anything other than me. That's when my power is made perfect. And so we always have to try to keep ourselves in that mentality. Like, let me not trust man. Let me not trust things. Let me not trust none of these worldly things. Let me always trust in Yahuwah, and allow, and let him know, it's mentally. Sometimes you don't even need to speak anything. It's mentally. Yahuwah's tapped into our minds. He knows, how many times in scripture do you see when Yahuwah's saying something like, you see in the Old Testament or New Testament, and there's somebody saying, that they said within themselves, just like the woman who was going up to Yahusha to touch him, to touch the border of his garment. She said within herself, if I could just touch this man, I can be healed. And so Yahuwah's tapped into us. He's got us. We're downloaded into the membrane. Like, he's got us. He's got us on lock. So he knows when our minds are set on him. And that's why, of course, scripture says, that we should love him with all our heart, mind, and soul, because when we do that, he knows that we're trusting on him and only him. We're not trusting in man, man or any worldly things. But when we get to those points where we're hopeless, when we're vulnerable, when we're weak and we're trusting in him, that's when his powers are made perfect. So just seeing how that all plays out here, it's just a testimony of exactly what he told, Paul when Paul sought him.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. There's a verse. I like that you said he's tapped into us in our minds. When he gives us the ruach, is it's like filling our minds with it's kind of like connecting his mind to our mind. His thoughts to our thoughts. That's why it says our thoughts is not like his thoughts. So when we submit ourselves to him, he puts his thoughts in our minds so we can actually deliver his thoughts to other people. But there's a verse in Isaiah. I thought I remembered it. It says, "Blessed is the man whose mind is fixed." Blessed is the man whose mind is fixed on Yah. This is a very, very beautiful verse.
Isaiah 26.
Isaiah 26. What verse?
3.
Yes. Thank you. Isaiah 26, verse 3. Yahuah shall keep you in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. And then verse 4, trust ye in Yahuah forever, for in Yahuah is everlasting strength.
Hallelujah.
Praise Yah. Is
Praise Yah.
that Yahuah twice? Oh, that's Yah. Yah Yahuah. For in Yah Yahuah is everlasting strength. That's exactly what you was talking about from 2 Corinthians chapter 12, where it says, my grace is sufficient, my strength is made perfect in your weakness. He is our strength, and when we're fixed on him, we receive that strength. He's able to fill us with that strength, and not only fill us, but manifest it so the world could see. That's the whole reason why we're here, to reveal to the world that he exists. John chapter 17 says that when we become one, then it shows the world that Yahuwah sent Yahusha. You see, because when we tell people that Yahushua is in us, it's proof by them looking at how we walk, how we live, how we talk, how things happen when we say it happens. So we're definitely representatives. We're representatives of who he is, and praise Yah that we don't have to do it with our own strength. Like he gives us the ability to. Brother Kevin, go ahead, brother.
Hope you guys can hear me.
Oh yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, that's fine. Is there anything left? It's just a bare bone now. Everybody jumped in. They took a bite, cleaned off this part of the bone. I said, well, there's still that end with the crust on it. And everybody slid down the bone and polished that end off to us. Man, is there anything left?
As always.
I'll go back and in verse 22, where basically he said, hey, everything's gonna be all right. Everything's gonna be okay. Fast forward to the end, everybody was all right.
Right.
The ship did break apart. And as always, these things apply today, in our lives today. I have adversary come down just when I'm thinking I'm doing good, and bam, it gets heavy on you. And you struggle, you doubt. You're like, well, wait a minute, I must have done something wrong. But because of belief alone, it's like, well, let me pray, give it up to him, and go on about my business. The problem that I started finding out is I started being kind of braggadocious that I could do these things. When the hard times hit, oh, I just gotta pray. I just have to believe. Whether it happens on my timeline or not is a different thing, but it always comes through. At the end of it, I know something good is going to be of it.
Right.
I just can't see it. But the
Right.
problem that I've been trying to, I can't say reconcile, but put there where I'll understand it is that arrogance about it, that I know, I'm almost proud. Oh, let something happen. Let something come down on me and let me show you what y'all can do. That's not right either.
Right.
So that's everybody else. Like I said, they polish that bowl. As my mama used to say, you better polish that bowl. And was nothing left. No gristle, no crust, nothing. Nothing polished. Everybody. Nika, Jay, JP, everybody. You, of course. I said, oh no, he's getting on the last little bit, and you polished it off, and there wasn't much I can say. But as always, it's been great. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. What you said is also very important. You know, the arrogance of calling upon yourself trials, like, oh, you know, come watch how I'm gonna, you know, nah. We're moment by moment, step by step believers. That's how we endure to the end. You know, so what you said is very important. Very important. You know, that's a big chunk. Because right now, that's what you see in most places is that arrogance that we are whatever. When scripture says, any man who thinketh himself to be anything outside of what he ought, he is nothing. He is nothing. You know, so the idea that I am nothing is supposed to keep me humble as to who I am without Yah. The arrogance comes with a self-proclaimed identity that I have because I'm with Yah. It's like like a big brother complex. You know, you have like a big brother that you see the bully, you have a big brother, you're like, yeah, and then you're provoking it. Yeah, what you gonna do? My big brother's right here. That's not the ways of Yah. You know, that arrogance. You see, what Yah wants us to do is say, to boast in our weakness. Tell people, it's not me. I am unable. It is impossible with my strength. But with Elohim, all things are possible. But with Yah, but with Yahusha by my side, giving me my strength, you know, he is continuously glorified in our lips, you know, or we end up, you know, in danger of going down that Napoleon complex. Yeah, come mess with me and my Elohim. Come mess with my Elohim. Like, no. Yeah, your will be done. Whether it be prosperous or whether it be in trouble, whether it be in struggle or whether it be in peace, your will be done. You know, and that's the mindset that we need to keep, like what Brother Mecca was saying. You know, so what you're saying, Brother Kevin, very important for us to basically examine ourselves, make sure that arrogance is gone.
You know how long I've been saying with Yah, all things are possible. That was the very first verse, I guess you could say, that I remember from childhood. Of course, I didn't say Yah, I said GD, but nonetheless, I've been saying that for, not to tell my age, but okay, about 60 years. How about that?
All right.
And then there you go again. There you go again. I expect that from you, to just, you know, put the cherry on top, add a little whipped cream. Here, let me put some sprinkles on this for you. And it's delicious, man. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Praise Yah, brother. And thank you for your comments, brother. JP, in the place to be.
Yeah. You know, I was kind of going back to that verse, you know, in 35, and we had spoke about you know, him breaking bread. He took bread and gave thanks to Elohim in the presence of them all. And when he had broken it, he began to eat. There was some times when I felt kind of like, oh, I don't know, you know, we gotta, you know, let's be cool, let's pray, but like, let's, you know, keep it on the under, you know, like in a restaurant or a family, friends, and you know, because I don't want to, because I feel like, you know, I was like, I don't want to press on them like what we do. And so at one point in my mind, I was like, oh, that's like, be humble, don't be like trying to be show off, like we pray and this is how we do it before we eat. But then like that ruach is like, nah,
It gets you.
hold on, like
He's like, what? I'm not with you right now?
yeah, it's like, are you gonna be like that? Like, and so just looking up, like, you know, just right now, looking up cross references, and I'm like looking around, and it took me to Psalms 119, verse 46. 45 though, it says, and I will walk at liberty, for I seek thy precepts. But 46 says, I will speak of thy testimonies also before kings, and will not be ashamed.
Mm.
And so then it goes to this now, like, you know, I know it's not in this, it might not be in the same context of being ashamed, but there's like levels, right, of ashamed, like where you're feeling like, you know, I'm not ashamed, but then someone says, well, that's, you know, you ain't being out there with it, you know what I'm saying?
In a sense,
you know what I'm saying? And so in Romans 1:16, it says, for I am not ashamed of the gospel of Messiah, for it is the power of Elohim unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first and also to the Greek, right? 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 8, be not therefore ashamed of the testimony of our master, nor of me his prisoner, but be thou partaker of the afflictions of the gospel according to the power of Elohim. I got two more. 2 Timothy 1:12, for the which cause I also suffer these things. Nevertheless, I am not ashamed, for I know whom I have believed, and am persuaded that he is able to keep that which I have committed unto him against that day. And the last one, 1 Peter 4:16. Yet if any man suffer as a you know, it says Christian here, so I don't know what people like to call themselves, you know, but as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify Elohim on this behalf. And so just reading these verses, it really just, and Paul, what he did right here, it really just like, it showed me today, right now, like those times when you feel that way, when you feel like, it's like, nah, don't, you know, and again, like what the brother Kevin was speaking about, like, you're not going to do it to be flamboyant, like, look at me, but you're going to do it in a humble way, but in a way that you're still glorifying Yahuah, to where even if somebody is looking, you're doing like Paul just did, you're witnessing in a subtle manner, you know, and by, like you had said, brother, like by living life. I'm just doing it because this is my life. This is what I'm doing, because it's not because I'm trying to show to the world like, oh, this is how you do it. No, it's just, this is how we do it. This is my life. I'm set apart. And as a set apart one, as a called out one, I'm going to walk this out in a humble, loving, you know, but in a set apart way, to where, you know, so I just wanted to bring that in. I just was like, wow, like it just took me there. You know what I'm saying? It took me there to that place. So hallelujah, praise God. No,
absolutely. Absolutely. You know, this is how we do it. You know, it says here, Psalms 108, verse 3, I will praise you, O Yahuwah, among the people. I will sing praises unto you among the nations. Psalm 72:17, his name shall endure forever. His name shall be continued as long as the sun, and men shall be blessed in him. All nations shall call him blessed. How would that happen? You know, they have to find out about him from somebody, you know. um, you know, Psalm 57, verse 9 again, I will praise you, O Yahuwah, among the people. I will sing unto you among the nations, meaning like in front of them, you know. So it's like there's no hindrance of what we do because we're in the midst of the nations. We do what we do because this is what we do. If I'm out, you with me, I'm gonna do what we do, and you don't have to do it, but you're gonna see it. You know, we pray. I put my hands up because I always put my hands up. So I put my hands up, I bow my head. You feel uncomfortable, I can't do nothing about it. You where I am. You see what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, and I have to teach my children, never think, you know, there's something else that we can do other than what we do. In the book of Daniel, like you have Daniel doing what he always did. It was not, I'm doing this because I want to show that I'm loyal to you. No, it says just like Daniel does every day. He went out there. Oh, you made a law? Okay, I got to do what I always do anyway. You know what I mean? When we have family worship, like sometimes we have people come in and they're like, oh, what do you do when you have family worship? What do you do? And I don't, you know, I say it's time to pray. And all my kids, my wife and myself, we get on our knees. You know, we get on our knees. But I tell people you don't have to do exactly what we do, but this is just what we do, you know. So we get on our knees because we know who we're talking to. Like if he was in front of me, I'm gonna be on my knees. If he was in front of me, my face is gonna be down until he picks me up. You know, I'm not gonna even act like just because I can't see him like he's not here. I believe he's here. He's with me. So when I come to him and I say, Father, and I know it's like when I close my eyes, I picture him like right in front of me. You know, so how would I feel? I get down on my knees. But anybody else, how do you feel? How does he affect you? How do you believe? Do you believe that he wants you to stand with him, look at him in awe, bow your head in reverence? You know, whatever it is, do what your relationship with him is, and don't stop it just because somebody else is in the room. You know, I remember when I was beginning my walk, and it used to be that type of thing with food, eating, and I don't want to, you know. But then after a while, it was just like, you know, I had to start telling people, all right, hold on, because you if I don't do that, I'm never gonna end up praying. So I have to be like, hold on, you know, bow my head, and then I get up and I eat and I'm talking. They're like, what are you doing? You're praying? What are you doing? You know, you're gonna end up in that. They're gonna see it, and it's gonna impact them, and you're gonna have to teach them. You know, so that's the beauty. That's the beauty of how there's something in everybody that's interested. You know, that's why Hasatan is very tactful. Wants to make this thing wants to make the scriptures look like foolish. Wants to make it look televangelists, these crazy camps out here, crazy Torah people, crazy non-Torah people, crazy churches, crazy Hebrews. Like there's crazies of every kind, because Hasatan is trying to make this thing look foolish. So if we show the world this is about my life and that Yah is real, if you can see Yah is real through my life, that's going to make you want him. Me giving you information is not going to make you want him. You seeing him in my life is going to make you want it in your life. And that's just how it is, you know? So we got to let the nation see it. Forget about how they feel. This is what I do, you know, and make sure that we're not doing it for them to see it either, you know.
I just wanted to add what you said right now, man. Is just, it's so true. It's so true. I forget where I heard a talk before, and it was saying like, you know, back when I used to, you know, believe differently, they would say, you know, if you don't have your solid foundation, your faith in Yah right now, how do you think you're going to be during the Great Tribulation? And it was like, you can't push it out at the last minute. You have to start building out your foundation right now.
Absolutely.
You know, and you know, even though that wasn't my former belief, it is true.
It's true.
That is true. And
Mhm.
every day that we progress in this walk, it does get easier. The things that used to be hard a year ago get easier. I remember I was scared when I first started putting on like tzitzit, and I was like, man, my neighbors are gonna like look at me and say, hey, what are you doing over there, you little Jewish boy? And then, you know, it progressed and progressed, and now it's like my neighbors know now. They
Right.
see it, and even though they haven't felt comfortable to ask about it, I know that they see it, and it's like, okay, there's a difference there. And I wanted to tie it into something else, and I forgot. But
Hey, that was enough to give Yah praise. Praise Yah.
hallelujah, man. I mean, this walk is beautiful. It's a beautiful walk.
It is, and Ameka's favorite verse that he always brings out: the nations will look upon his people and say, well, look what type of righteous commandments these people have. Not because we're telling them it, because they see it walked out. They see it, you know, and they're like, hey, what are you doing? This is Yah's commands. Man, like what type of righteous set apart commands is this?
But the law's done away with, brother.
Yeah, so let's show them that it's not.
Hallelujah.
Praise God. Ameka, go ahead, brother. And then we'll close.
Yeah, you know, just to finish that, you know, my favorite section, you know, what nation is there that has Elohim so nigh unto them?
Right.
As Yahuah, Elohim God is in all things that we call upon him for. You know, and so then that's definitely, you know, it's beautiful, man. And I just wanted to read this out of Colossians chapter 1. It says, and starting at verse 9, it says, for this cause we also, since the day we heard it, do not cease to pray for you, and to desire that you might be filled with the knowledge of his will in all wisdom and spiritual understanding, that you might walk worthy of Yahuah unto all pleasing, be fruitful in all, you might walk worthy of Yahuah unto all pleasing, being fruitful in every good work, and increasing in the knowledge of Yahuah, strengthened with all might according to his glorious power, unto all patience and long suffering with joyfulness, giving thanks unto the Father, which has made us meet to be partakers of the inheritance of the Kodashim in light, who has delivered us from the power of darkness and has translated us into the kingdom of his only begotten, in whom we have redemption through his blood, even the forgiveness of sins, who is the image of the invisible Yah, the firstborn of every creature. For by him were all things created that are in heaven and that are on earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones and dominions or principalities or powers, all things were created by him and for him. And I'll stop right there. But, you know, just, you know, the part that was really hitting me when I just read this just last night with somebody is really in verse 15. It says, who is the image of the invisible Yah? Like telling you, like, we can't even put no kind of image or being behind him. There's this invisible presence of Yahuwah and his Ruach, you know, and I think that's so powerful when Yahusha, going back to what you were bringing out in John chapter 3, when Yahusha talks about how, you know, those that are born from above, you know, it's like, you know, it's like they come like the wind. And also thinking about the Ruach, you know, that there is no beginning and there is no end to it. You know what I'm saying? There is no
Right.
beginning of the when, there's no end. It's just there. It's just existence. And that's Elohim. He's just there. His presence is there. And you just got to meditate on him and his presence and that power, that being, you know, and have faith in it. But, you know, bringing us on to all power and understanding, man, I really, just reading this yesterday, it was just like, wow, you know.
Praise Yah. No, absolutely. The image of the invisible Elohim. You know, it's interesting how the image that he gives off is the image that he's creating us into. You know, firstborn of every creature. It says that when we are in Messiah, we are a new creature as well. You know, verse 15. You know, so that creature is the image of the invisible Elohim. You know, there's a verse I want to connect to that. Absolutely, I agree 100% with what you're saying. 1 John chapter 3, verse 1 and 2, it says, "Behold, what manner of love the Father hath bestowed upon us, that we should be called the children of Elohim. Therefore, the world does not know us, because it does not know him." It says, "Beloved, now are we the children of Elohim, and it does not yet appear what we shall be, but we know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him." The image, our image shall be like his image. It says, because we shall see him as he is. You know, so praise Yah that image, that invisible image, is clearly seen not only in the son of Elohim, but in all the sons and daughters of Elohim, you know, and they're not going to know. Just like what you said, Mecca, and those who are born again, those who are filled with the Ruach, they're not going to know why we're going, why we're coming, where we came from, you know, why we're doing what we're doing. You know, everybody who's born of the Ruach will move according to the Ruach, and the world won't know. But they'll ask questions. So they'll inquire so they can know, you know. And praise Yah, we don't have to go and do some crazy stuff. We can literally live, and people will inquire, you know. People will inquire. Not saying that we shouldn't go out and teach, and I preached on a train in New York before. I preached on the trains to 4 a.m, gay parade, all of that stuff. You know what I mean? That stuff is necessary. That stuff is necessary. We had train carts full of gay people talking about, yeah, I got a Bible. You know, I may go home and open it. Like, that stuff is necessary. But there's more of an impact when you have a person like what Tony was saying, a person that see you, neighbors that see you every day. That you get to give them more of an impact, because they not only hear you, they get to see you, and that's gonna last long. You know, they're gonna remember that. You know, but praise Yah, Mecca, for those verses in Colossians, man. Praise Yah. JP, go ahead. I know we're supposed to close.
Yeah, I just had to, want to speak on this. I know we're closing, but this will just end this probably. Isaiah chapter 42, verse 5 says, "Thus saith Al Yahuah, he that created the heavens and stretcheth them out, he that spread forth the earth and that which cometh out of it, he that giveth breath unto the people upon it, and spirit to them that walk therein. I, Yahuwah, have called thee in righteousness, and will hold thine hand, and will keep thee, and give thee for a covenant of the people, for a light of the Gentiles." Wow. To open the blind eyes, last verse, to open the blind eyes, to bring out the prisoners from the prison, and them that sit in darkness out of the prison house.
There we go.
Wow.
That's how you free the prisoners.
Free the I mean, and it is referenced in Acts 13:47 as well, but I wanted to go to Isaiah because I felt like going there is going to give us.
Yeah.
It's just amazing what you brothers are speaking about. It's just to live it like we're talking about, to show the people through your life. It's so amazing, and to be that light in the darkness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
you just said, to set the prisoners free. Like I was once a prisoner.
Oh, praise
I
God.
was a prisoner, man. I was in bondage. I was shackled up. And I'm free, and I'm free indeed. Like the brother Mecca's, hashtag free indeed. You know what I mean? Shalom, shalom.
Praise Yah, man. Praise Yah. This is a beautiful Isaiah 42. Beautiful, man. Beautiful. Yahuwah have called you in righteousness and will hold your hand. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. It's Isaiah 42, verse 6. Will hold your hand and will keep you and give you for a covenant of the people, for a light of the nations, to open the blind eyes. You see the responsibility that we have, the responsibility Paul had, the responsibility all those who serve Yah have. It's beautiful, man. Oh man, I'm gonna be reading this. I'm gonna share with you guys next time, though. I gotta share. Check out Isaiah 60, verse 1-7, and we'll probably talk about that later. But yeah, shalom, everybody. Good study.
Wait a minute. Isaiah what?
Isaiah 60, verse 1-7.
Isaiah 60. There it is.
You guys gonna read it, right? Arise, shine, for your light has come.
That's
The
it.
glory of Yahuwah is risen upon you. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people. But Yahuwah shall rise upon you, and the glory shall be seen on you. The nations shall come to your light, and the kings to the brightness of your rising. Lift up your eyes and look around and see all they that gather themselves together to come to you. Your sons shall come from far, and your daughters shall be nursed at your side. Then shall you see and flow together, and your heart shall fear and be enlarged, because the abundance of the sea shall be converted to you. The wealth of the nations shall come to you. The multitudes of camels shall cover you. The young camels of Midian and Ephah, all of them from Sheba shall come, and they shall bring gold and incense and shall show forth praises unto Yahuwah. So even though they coming to you, they coming to Yahuwah, not to you. And it says, all the flocks of Kedar shall be gathered together unto you. The rams of Nabayot shall serve you, and they shall come up to be accepted upon my altar, and I will glorify the house of my glory. That's me and my children, I read this to my children at the end of our worship every single day. I tell them this is what Yah wants to do in you. Like, this is what you are meant for, And my daughter, she's like, oh, I'm not going to get married. She's 6. So she's like, I'm not going to get married. And it's just like, so, they're going to have children. She said, yeah, I'm going to have children. I said, but you're not going to get married. She said, no, I'm going to take care of other children. And then we started reading verse 4, where it says, your son shall come from far and your daughter shall be nursed at your, and she loves that part because she wants to take care of the children. But praise Yah, man. Praise Yah. This is just the promise of what Yah wants us to become is high. And all we have to do is accept it. A lot of insecurities we got to get rid of, and we got to say, this is us. Just like how John the Baptist said, oh, you want to know who I am? Let's turn to Isaiah 40. When people ask about us, you want to know who we are? Let's turn to Isaiah 60. Let's turn to Isaiah 40. Let's turn to all the scriptures where Yah says, this is my people. If we're his people, we are in the scripture. We are in the scripture and we have a high calling, so. All right, brothers.
Ooh, talk about it.
Praise Yah. Now go. Infect the nations. Praise Yah, man.
I'll see y'all this weekend.
All right. Shalom, brothers.
Shalom, shalom. You got to end the recording.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
That was extra. That was extra right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got it in. We got it in. We got it in real quick.
I don't want to
Wow.
stop it. I don't want to
Oh
stop it.
man,
Hey.
I'm trying to tell you, man.
That
It
was
was
good.
I was over here and I'm reading it with him, and after every verse, it was like, please don't stop. Here come
Yeah.
another verse. Here come another verse. I was like, ooh, pour the gravy. Pour it.
Yeah.
That was delicious.
Praise Yah. Praise Yah.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Yeah, shalom.
Shalom, Akuti, and Brohim. Thank you so much for viewing this video. We hope it was helpful to your walk in the truth. Remember to always search the scriptures on your own, to study Abba's word and show yourself approved, according to 2 Timothy 2:15. We invite you to study with us. To join us in a live study, just go to our website at assemblyofyahuah.com and click the Join Us tab. We have something available Wednesday through Saturday of every week. If you've been Baruch or blessed by this video today or any other study, we encourage you to go to the Giving tab on our website. Our elders all have their own ways of income, so none of the giving or proceeds go to them. Instead, it goes to biblical assembly needs. We also encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you don't miss any new videos. We sincerely pray that Abba continues to direct your path as you acknowledge Him in all your ways. Much avaha, and again, shalom.